Okay, so looking at your building, from the first floor plan probably, that's probably where you're going to want to put your cross sections on. I have a couple on here, one through my stairwell and one main cross section through the building. And I think in your process of developing your plan, you put on some cross sections, maybe temporarily, just to see how things were working out. You know, if you delete those, that's fine. You know, I can go and click on this one here and delete it. And it's going to give me a warning that says it's going to delete that section, and I could say okay, and now I don't have that section anymore at all, or the section view. So I'm going to put a new one on. You can find that under View. There's the section command. Another place you can find it is up on the Quick Access toolbar. It should be up there as well. And then wherever you start is where the head of the section bubble is going to be. And you can pull that down through your building somewhere. We're going to do the main cross section here first. And if it's pointing in a direction that you don't want, you've got the little arrows. You can flip it to whichever way you want. If you want the head down here instead of up there, you can hit the little turn buttons up here. First off, it'll turn it off. Then you can go down here and turn it back on this end. Okay, so you can manipulate it that way. Yesterday we talked a little bit about the line type, and that it defaults to just a solid thin line. And if we want that line to be a more phantom line, or a line that has a long dash, two short dashes, and a long dash, if we click on the line, go to Visual Graphics under the Properties box, you can find the Visual Graphics, edit that, go to the Annotation Categories, go down to Object Styles at the bottom, click on that, and if you pull the sidebar down, you'll find the section line right here, section line. It defaults to a line weight of 1. Let's change that to maybe a 6 or 7. We want it to be black. We don't want it to be solid, so we'll click on the solid, pull that down, and make it a double dash 3/8 probably. So click on double dash 3/8, apply that, go OK, and now you can see that it changed the line type. And it changed it for all of them. All section lines now are that type. So that's something we can do. The other thing about your cross section, if you want to look at the cross section, you can always just click on the head of the cross section, and it will put you in the section, right? And so when you first look at your section, take a quick look at it and see if it's showing what you want it to show. In this case, I'm seeing a cut through my windows and so forth. And maybe I want to do that, and maybe I don't want to do that. If I'm just giving a section that gives as much information about the framing of the building, I may not want to have it cut through my windows or doors. So in that case, I'll go back to my first floor plan and take a look at where I actually have it. And I'm cutting through the window. All I would simply have to do would be maybe move this section to the wall where it's not cutting through a window. And now take a look at it. And now maybe that's going to more clearly give the information that I want. So get it to a spot where it's going to be right for your building and for what your needs are. It's putting a section through our building that's representing the elements that we've put into it, the 3D elements we've put into it. So a lot of the things may not be complete yet. This connection of the floor to the walls isn't right yet and needs to have some adjustments to it. We never talked about putting a ceiling in on the second floor yet, so that's not in here at all yet. I actually have put in some softened fascia, I guess fascias, not soffits. Maybe you have not, and maybe we need to address that a little bit. So right now it's looking like it's all big bold lines, and I want to see it in more detail, so I'm going to go change it to thin lines by going up to the quick access toolbar and changing to thin lines. Now I can more easily see it. We can change what we're seeing here by adjusting the crop window. If I pull that out, now I can see a little more of it. In some cases, we want to see a full cross-section through our building. In other cases, we may only want to see halfway through our building. So we can do stuff like that. So there's no sense in seeing more than we actually need. And sometimes we can make things fit better on a sheet if we're not seeing more than we actually need to see. Okay, so for now, I'm just going to pull it out. Another reason you might want to do that is if we look at this area right here, where the roof of the patio roof intersects with the roof of the main part of the building, this is a hard area to try to detail and show exactly what you're doing, because you're cutting through a random spot on that patio roof or deck roof. So, you may not want to show this. It may be just confusing to the contractor of what you're trying to show. So that might be a case of saying, well, I'm only going to show this much of the building. I don't want to confuse them by showing something that I can't really detail well from this section. Okay, so we'll work with that a little bit. We're seeing doors in this view. If we didn't want to see the doors, we could obviously click on the door, select all instances in the project, select all instances in the project, hide in the view. And now I'm not hiding those, I'm hiding those doors, but behind that door we were seeing a window. So now I might have to hide the window. So I'll just undo that for now, but we can hide things in the view, right? And you can hide all of them at once by doing that, select all instances in the project or in the view. If we're hiding them just in the view, then we're only hiding the ones that we can see on this page or this section, not the entire building. We'll address that in a little bit here. Okay, so I'm going to I want to see my vestibule area. So right now I'm looking away from the vestibule. So I'm going to go back to my floor plan, and I'm going to turn this so I'm pointing at the vestibule. I'm going to move my section. This section bubble is in a spot where it's kind of over top of the patio, cutting through some dimension lines and so forth. So I'm just going to pull it a little bit farther out. So it goes all the way out here. On the top end, again, I can pull that up so it's a little farther. And then if you don't want the section to be all the way through your building, right in the middle, you'll see a little something in the middle of the line. If you click that, it's going to put a break line in there, and you'll notice it's taken out part of that section line. So if it was cutting through something that was making it hard for your drawing to read, you can then adjust these points if you wanted to. That's another option you can deal with. So now I pulled it out so that I can see my vestibule. So if I clicked on this, head again, now over here I'm seeing a little more of my patio, my deck, my railing, and the roof over the vestibule area of the building. And that's kind of nice. I kind of like that, so I'll leave it like that. Okay, so let's go back to the floor plan, do a little more talking about this section. The other thing about the section is if you click on it, you'll see the a dashed line that represents, in this case, that we're looking all the way through our building, right? If we don't want to look all the way through our building, we can, again, pull this section line back. And if I pulled it all the way back to this side of the, or right close to where my section line is, and we look at our section, guess what? My vestibule's gone because I'm not looking far enough, right? So now I've really simplified this drawing, but it kind of makes these roofs maybe not look so great. So there's things we can do. We're just playing around with it at this point. go back to my section view, click on it again, and pull that a little bit farther. And now I'm looking at it the way I want to again. Okay. Those are just some ways of manipulating the section to see what you want to see. Okay, so let's talk about this floor connecting into the wall system a little bit. The other thing that you'll notice is I'm seeing pretty good detail of the exterior of the building here, but I'm not seeing my sheetrock and my siding and my sheathing and so forth. So if I go down here to my coarse, medium, or fine detail, if I click on fine, now you'll be able to see all those components. Okay. A few of the things we've talked about in the past is want to make sure things are lining up correctly with our foundation. In this case, we put a little brick on it, and I actually have siding running behind my brick. I'd want to modify that, and we'll talk about that again a little bit later, but we can actually pull that siding up, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay, let's talk about this floor connection to the wall. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to join the two pieces together. So if I clicked on the floor or the wall, I can go up to the Join Geometry button up here. I can click on that. I can click the floor and then click the wall. And now it has joined those elements together. The joist is going across, or the truss joist here, and you can put in the details. Up on the top, you'll notice that the subfloor went under the wall, but the gypcrete did not, because we put the gypcrete outside of the core of the floor, so it doesn't go into the core of the wall. So cores match up, and outside of the core items do not. So that's kind of what we wanted. In this case here, now we want to put in some detail to represent this. So in reality, when we put in our exterior walls, we put in a wall that was, what, 17 foot 9 inches tall, but in fact it's two walls. It's a wall that comes up to the floor joist and stops, and then a new wall starts above the floor joist. So that's why this floor truss goes into the wall. Let's add a detail there of those top plates and bottom plates and so forth. So if we go to the architecture or the home tab on your computer, go to components, go to annotate, excuse me, not the home tab, but go to annotate, go to components, hit the little down arrow there, and we have detail components and we have repeating detail components. A repeating detail component is something like brick, right, where you have a series of bricks going up, and the farther you drag out that component, the more bricks will show up. We want to just put in a detail component. And if we go look under the properties, we'll see what kind of detail components are in the program that are available to you. And what we're looking for are these dimension lumber sections. So they should be in there. They should be in under default. Our exterior walls are 2x6s, so we're going to click on the 2x6. And when you bring it over to your screen, it's on your cursor. If you hit the tab key, or the space bar, excuse me, you can rotate that around in whichever position you want to place it. So I want to put the top plate on this wall, so I want to put it in, and I'll place it there. Okay, I want to put the bottom plate of this wall in. I might want to flip it to that direction so I could grab that corner. Okay, I want to put the second one in down here. I might want to flip it over again and click that. Okay, so we've added those details, right? This is going to be a floor truss at some point, and we're going to have to put in some detail lines for that. But typically, if there's a floor truss, there's going to be some type of rim joist. Is that right? And on floor trusses, the rim joist is typically a 2x4. So I'm going to go back to my components, and this time I'm going to click on a 2x4. I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to flip it a little bit, and I'm going to place it where I think that should be. Now you may not have noticed this, but I put that one bottom plate in up here in the wrong spot. So if I click on that, I can move that a little bit. I didn't get it quite lined up correctly. Okay. Every once in a while someone will say, well, I see this line through here and that shouldn't be there, right? That line is actually this line right here. So I'm just going to hide that temporarily just to show you. And now that line is gone. So I'm just going to undo that. Just so you aren't confused by what that line is, that is what it is. Okay. So that's the line you're seeing in there. Okay, so now if we're going to add some detail to this building, we need to create maybe some webs and stuff that go with this floor truss. And we're just going to do that with some line work. We're not going to create a 3D floor truss. We could. It takes a lot of time, and if you were working for a truss fabricator and that was your job to create truss layouts, you might do that. But if you're a designer of a building, you just want to create a detail, you're going to put in some line work that represents the floor truss. So I'm going to go to a detail line. I'm just going to use a straight line, and for now it's just going to be a thin line, which it probably should be anyway. And I'm going to start my line over here, and I'm just going to pick a spot here. It's not probably in the right spot, but I'm just going to drag it out a ways. And if I click on that line, it's going to tell me a distance over here, but a distance from where to where. So, you know, I'm going to just throw a dimension on it and see where it actually ended up. Okay, so I randomly picked it and it put it 1 3/4 away. That's the top chord of the truss, and it should be a 2x4, so it should be 1.5 inches. So if I click on that, I can change that to 1.5. And then I can just get rid of that dimension if I need to. Okay, so that's the top chord of the truss. I want to put it on the bottom as well. I could redraw it, or I can just copy it from here. I'm just going to place it somewhere. You know, and you might find faster ways to do this. I'm just showing you a way to do it. Okay, so now I've got my top and bottom chords in. I need a detail line that runs from here down to here to create the end of the truss. The bottom chord should actually run under that. I need to double up this end vertical member on the truss, so I need to copy that 1.5 inches away. Okay, so I'm getting my truss lined up. In most cases, now we're going to start putting in the webs for the truss, the angle members that represent the truss. And a standard floor truss, typically those webs are, how far apart? Does anybody know? Is it random, or is there a general use distance? Are they at 45 degrees? No, they're not. As trusses get taller, the angle gets steeper. On a 14-inch truss, those angles are fairly shallow. On a 24-inch truss, those angles get steeper. And the standard truss manufacturer recommended distance apart is if I take this line here and I offset that line 30 inches. 30 inches. Okay, so I've offset some lines 30 inches apart. So 30 inches apart. Now I would draw another detail line from the intersection here to the intersection here. And so on. Okay. So 30 inches apart, thinking about that, if this truss was 14 inches deep, that would be one angle. If this truss was 24 inches deep, that angle would be different, right? They're still 30 inches apart, but the deeper the truss, the steeper the angle gets to be then. So I want to make these, this might be okay for the detail, to be just a representation of what the truss might look like. If you want to get a little more precise, you might say, okay, I'm going to these verticals, and I might say that I want to offset those again to make those the thickness of a 2x4. So I would offset those. I might want to offset these 3/4 of an inch. So I might get something like that. Then I can go back and delete the center lines, which were the ones I started out with. And then I can trim up some of these things. It all depends on how fine a detail you want to have. And in this case, I'm going pretty fine detail, right? So in some cases, the center line would have been enough, depending on the project you're working on. But you can see at this point, this part of the truss is really detailed exactly the way it would be, right? The other thing to keep in mind is that and let's say I want to put, do I have to do all of those the same like that, or should I just, let's delete that and delete that and delete that. I want to create a bunch of these, so can I take those, copy those from this location to that location? So I can, once I've created some of them, I can copy them around rather than having to do a lot of trimming and so forth. So, the other thing is trusses need to be symmetrical one end to the other. And if so both ends of a truss have to be the same. If the truss is of an odd length, there's going to be some difference in the middle of the truss. Not at either end, but in the middle of the truss. So if I want this same truss over here, I should be able to copy all of that, including my top and bottom plates, and go to the mirror command, select the I need to actually draw a line the way it looks. So I'm going to draw a line so that I can get a center point in my building. So that's just a construction line, a temporary line. Then I'll go back and copy that stuff to a clipboard, or not to a clipboard, but just a copy command. Then go to mirror it off of that line, and I put it over on the other end of the building. So that might be all we need for the detail of this building, of that floor truss, right? Could be. Okay, so we might want to do some detailing in the middle here where these trusses come together, because we don't have a 52-foot truss. We probably have two trusses that set on the center bearing wall, and I can let you figure that out on your own. We do have this party wall which has separation between it. We want to keep sound down, so maybe we want to keep that that inch air gap going all the way up through the building so we don't touch anything even in the floor joist space. So we might work on that a little bit in there. Okay, at this point we don't have a roof truss on it, and we don't have a ceiling on it in the building. So let's go put a ceiling in our building.